I'm Merrilyn Rathbun, and I'm the research director for the Fort Lauderdale Historical Society.
And I'm here with Merrilyn today. I'm Robin Merrill, and I'm going to ask her a few questions about Colee Hammock. What can you tell us about Colee Hammock, Merrilyn?
Well, of course, it was all part of the Frankie Lewis donation, which was actually it was based on a Spanish land grant which was given to the Lewis family back in the 18th century. And then it was recognized by the federal government, the U.S. government, once they took over Florida. And then at some point it was purchased by the Brickell family in Miami. And Mary Brickell platted the subdivision of Colee Hammock. And there was some confusion about the name. Everybody thought that it was named after William Colee, who was a farmer down here, and he was also a magistrate. He was quite an important man. He was also a shipwrecker, too. And he had a farm which was up in the Sailboat Bend area near the forks of the river. And he was basically processing the kumpi plant into a sort of arrowroot starch, which was very valuable, which was, he had contracts with the government because they used it to make hardtack for the military. So anyway, he started farming down here in 1824, and in 1836, he was away shipwrecking, and his family was at the farm. Shipwrecking is there, of course, you know, this is fairly dangerous water for ships, and when they go down, you know, if there is a problem, then all of these people would go and salvage from the ships to try to salvage whatever they could, you know, from their whatever they were carrying. And it was really quite a business. And William Colee was a shipwrecker. At any rate, he was away from home, and he had run into a little trouble with the Indians. He was a magistrate, and apparently there had been some difficulty. One of the Indians had gotten into trouble, and he had made a decision which did not sit too well with the rest of the tribe. So while he was gone, some of the tribal members went down, and they basically attacked his farm, and they killed his family, his wife and his children, and there was a tutor living with him who took care of the children. Well, some reason over time, because it was so long between 1836 and then later on in the 20th century, about the 1920s, they decided that they wanted to basically honor this whole situation and erect the monument. And they thought that Colee Hammock was named for William Colee. Mm-hmm. So the DAR put up a monument with stating that this was the site of the Colee Massacre. Well, that was not the case. Actually, what happened is that Mary Brickell was friends with a man by the name of James Colee. And he was an engineer, and he was down here working on the Florida East Coast Canal, which was the predecessor to the Intracoastal. They were trying to make some sort of a canal going along the East Coast. And they were good friends, so when she platted out her subdivision of Colee Hammock, she named it for James Colee. But that little fact, he was there in the 1890s, but that little fact was forgotten. And so when the DAR decided to put up the monument...
The DAR being the Daughters of the American Revolution.
Yeah, Daughters of the American Revolution. The local Emershey chapter had gone through the whole process, which I understand that they have to get approval from their headquarters or national headquarters in order to put up any kind of a monument, but they'd gone ahead and they did this. They had actually invited someone down who was a descendant of William Colee, and everybody was convinced that this was the site of the Colee Massacre, and no, it wasn't. So it was put up, and nobody realized that until finally one of our local historians, Rodney Dillon, who actually worked for this organization, the Historical Society, for a time, and then he was coordinator for the Broward County Historic Commission for a number of years, and a very good historian. He went into it and looked it up and realized that no, there was a discrepancy here. So we have this monument there, which is sort of giving the wrong information. The Colee Massacre, we believe, actually happened, as I say, in the Sailboat Bend area. We believe it was like where the 7th Avenue Bridge is now, located. It's approximately on the north bank of the river.
And there's a complete difference in spellings, isn't there?
Yes, there is, but actually some people think that it is actually the same family because these names were very often misspelled at various times. So they may have actually been related at some point, distant relatives, but we haven't really followed that through.
Okay. And what else can you tell us about the Colee Hammock area and the historic nature of what's going on there?
Well, actually, another thing that happened somewhere in that area, basically, I think it was probably somewhere near the park, when Frank Stranahan was coming down here, you know, he came down because he was hired to basically run the ferry across the river because they were putting a road through from Palm Beach County down to Dade County, and they needed to get across the river. And they actually set up the ferry point and his camp grounds actually in the Colee Hammock area. And Mary Brickell discovered that this had happened and came on and said, wait a moment, you're squatting on my land. I do not want to have a major highway going through my land because I'm going to develop it as a high-end residential area. So she said, but I do have some land that's a little bit further west. So she moved him over to where the Stranahan house is now, right by Federal Highway. And eventually in 1926, of course, they replaced the ferry with in that area with the bridge, and Federal Highway went through. And from that developed US 1 and the tunnel. And that's also the reason that US 1 takes that interesting bend. You know, it comes down from the north, and then all of a sudden it goes straight west, you know, and it jogs, and then goes south again. And that's the reason, because they were detouring around Mary Brickell's property because she didn't want them there.
Interesting.
And then another thing that happened, of course, see, Colee Hammock, Rio Vista, that's all on the Atlantic coastal ridge, which is high ground. So it's very desirable land to build on. And when Henry Flagler was bringing down his railroad, the FEC railroad, of course, he planned on bringing it right down along the coastal ridge. And Mary Brickell told him, no, you can't do that. So that's the reason that the FEC railway sort of bends west.
Interesting.
So
she's a woman that people listen to.
she was somebody that you did not argue with. When she made up her mind that she wanted something, that's what she did.
And what about the Indians in that area? Were they ever settled in Colee Hammock area, or was that just an area that they might have passed through? Or
well, basically all along the river there are various, probably there were various campsites. The Indians were down here in the wintertime.
Seminole.
Yeah, the Seminole Indians. They were down here in the winter. Of course, there were earlier Indians here too, you know, I think the Tequestas.
Tequesta, okay.
But basically, there were probably Indian encampments all along the river. You know, people that came down. They were here because they were also harvesting the Coontie plant. You know, that's very important starch food stuff for them. And also, the fishing was good, you know, and they would go fishing off ocean fishing and also in the river and all that sort of thing. So this was a very desirable winter home. There was the huge North American reserve for the Coontie plant was between the forks of the New River, between the North Fork and the South Fork. And there was that's why Mr. Cooley had his farm down in that area, because it was very close to that area and easy for him to harvest it and bring it to his mill that he had on his farm there.